So what the fuck are we doing when it comes to the barbell bench press? Barbell bench press, can we agree, is a sport for powerlifting. It is also really the only thing that maybe linemen would use if they're going to test at the NFL Combine. And those people also horizontally, forcefully press someone away from them and lock them out, which in reality, maybe you should train them when their elbows are locked out so they can hold them upright. We're talking to an offensive lineman and grabbing people out to the side. Everyone else, just as Tony talked about in the very beginning of this podcast, they push their body away from the floor. Why is that more valuable than sitting on a bench, laying on a bench? Because now we're using your entire body and not just your chest. I know it looks good at the beach, but at the end of the day, if you want your shoulders to last until the end of time, maybe we should figure out other horizontal pushing activities for the Gen Pop.
There's plenty of other options, right?
Plenty of other options.
What do we like? We got to give people other options. We can't just say don't.
For sure.
What do we like?
Well, let me build a little more on the don't first, if you don't mind, and then we can kind of go from there. I think that there's a couple ways to look at this. I got a good friend who was operated on by the world famous Dr. James Andrews, and after he woke up from his anesthesia and after he did a labor repair on him, he looked at him, he goes, "Stop bench pressing." Hit him on the chest and walked out of the room. So, if he's got some say in it, I think that's something to value. I think that also for us, we have to consider what is the purpose of all of the bench work. And I think to build hypertrophy in the chest and hypertrophy in the body is great for football and sports where more muscle mass is absolutely critical. But we have to consider the exchange. What's the risk reward? There's no functional sport that you can tell me at this point that I've seen that requires your bench press to be some astronomical level. It's, push-ups are great, but to bench press, 300 pounds or 250 pounds or starting to push those levels up higher and higher, at what cost is really the question that we're trying to say, right? At the end of the day. Now, we all agree that bench pressing body weight sounds great, sounds reasonable, it's very good, but at some point when you're pushing into the level, you're actually going to increase your risk of other anterior arm issues. You're going to see certainly rotator cuff issues long term. You're going to see biceps issues in the short term. But we see it tremendously. So it's just something to consider. Why are we really doing it? And it's a good question to always ask. Is why are we doing what we're doing? What's the purpose behind this? So what are alternate options to Evan's point? Obviously the push-up stuff we love. We really look a lot at, to Aaron's point on stabilization with the arm and extension. If I'm a human and I'm going to generate force and I want to push something in front of me, it's not likely that I'm going to start with my arms bent and push it away. If I want to push something heavy, like a sled, for example, or some weight, or push a car, for example, I'm not going to start with my arms bent. The second my arms are bent, I've lost the battle. So my arms are going to be straight. And my legs are going to do all the work because my brain knows that my chest and my anterior line is that's just not strong. That's not where your body puts its force. So thinking about it mechanically, that starts to make some sense. Why are we training so much to be good at this thing that kinematically doesn't really add up?
I think from a biomechanical standpoint, this is what I love appreciating is I think a lot of strong bench pressers are going to be passionate with this. And if you're listening to this or watching this and you're a bench presser, I know you love it. You do love it. It's a simple lift. You learned it early. You got good at it. And you like it because it builds some mass. But I promise you, if you're a bench presser, your chest is stronger than your stomach. Yep. Now you're a lopsided mess. If you have more distal strength than proximal strength, you're a lopsided mess. It doesn't work. The body can't work like that. And so that goes back to the plank. What's the limiting factor when people plank? It's usually their stomach. They can't hold it together. And if you were to load that plank, think of just stacking a lot of weight right on you. Not that I recommend that because that'll cause potentially another different kind of injury. But if we really load that really heavy, you'll find that the middle of your midsection is a limiting factor. It's not your chest. It's not the shoulder. This usually is actually quite strong if you're a good functional athlete, but it's the midsection that's the issue. There was a little tirade. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
That's perfect.
It's fantastic. Yeah. I think there's, to those points, you kind of have to figure out if other options include the rest of your body. That's how you're going to use yourself. That's how you're going to conduct yourself in whatever sport or activity of daily living you're going to conduct. It's just use the rest of your body. Find that the rest of your power and your strength and your stamina comes from your legs and your trunk, and then your arms just finish the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one challenge that we probably face always in the bench press conversation is like, what about the lineman, to your point, that is, this pushing and blocking, and they do have to do this often. I'd argue that if you talk to a defensive lineman, it's actually an interesting conversation. When the offensive lineman's arm is bent, the defensive lineman has already won, right? So once that arm goes from a locked position to a bent position, they're swim maneuvering or they're breaking that arm through all day long, and they're past him because they know that he's not strong with his arm bent. He's only strong with his arm straight. So it's actually a strategy taught at high levels of football that prove the concept that we're much better off in an extended position and using our body weight and leveraging ourselves as opposed to trying to generate force with a bent arm.
And then if we must build mass, like if somebody feels very strongly about bench pressing,
yes,
there's probably some other ways we could do it.
Yeah.
Maybe a dumbbell, because we can get in a more neutral grip, or the Swiss bars, those neutral grip bars. We can end up in a position when we're not.
You manipulate the arm
Yeah,
position
exactly.
of the
Put
individual.
them in a position that's just a little bit safer for the front side of the shoulder.
And get it strong enough where maybe it's 1.5 time body weight. But you're right, these 2.5, 3 times body weight, well, that's just silly. It's a really kind of silly thing to see because, again, if someone's listening and they're saying, why not? I haven't heard a strong enough why not. It's because you're pinning your T-spine, your scap is in a protracted position, and you're using your shoulder in a really funky position. And it might be simple, low skill. That's not a good enough reason to do it. If you do a push-up, you allow the scap to retract. If you tie it in with other mobility drills or some arm bars, thoracic bridges, and get-ups, you're going to really work on that thoracic rotation. But the demon is when the people go and their main workout is bench day. That's the demon. It's not so much of adding a little bench here and there or some horizontal pressing. It's really negating what the body's supposed to be good at.
But with our athletes, I think we can think of that a little bit as kind of the candy, right? Like they want that. They want to see that. They want to feel the weight. They want to do that. That's part of like the, I don't know, it's testosterone or whatever it is, but they get pumped about it. They love it. Like the baseball guys that we work with in down in Sacramento they love bench day. Bench day is their favorite day. Now we hide it on a day where they're doing a heavy weighted reverse lunge. So that's the real key for the day, but they feel like it's bench day. So, it's like the kind of candy in the,
now they're using a Swiss bar when they do that.
It's highly, highly recommended. And with the younger athletes, it's forced with some of the higher level guys that have benched their whole career. Like, who am I to take that away from them? It's like Usain Bolt walks into your office and what am I going to change about his program? He's the fastest man in the world. So,
yep. Yeah, I think your point on the dumbbells is fantastic. It's usually the recommended way we go because we're not saying don't ever bench. That's not to take away from this, but again, more than body weight or 1.5, 2 times body weight are a double concern. But certainly body weight's fine, and ideally dumbbell is a huge one, and you can really be free with that as far as how far you progress. And then of course the Swiss bar, which is really a neutral grip. So instead of having your grip in a pronated position, your grip's kind of in a neutral position. That takes a tremendous amount of stress off the shoulder, allows your elbows to drop a bit, and you get a lot of the same benefits that you get otherwise. So, just at the end of the day, it's just about asking why. Why do we do what we do? And you just gotta have a justifiable reason for it. So if you do, and that's your sport, then by all means, rock and roll. But risk reward. Be ready to understand that there's certainly a calculated risk of some long term rotator cuff damage and some issues that you'll probably face for that. So,
absolutely.